Just wanted to give kind of some of my thoughts as to where the team stands at this point in the season. And I felt like it was a good time to do this because, going into that New England game, it was, playing to be on top of the division again, playing to be up towards the top tier in the AFC, and losing that game kind of put us down to the 7 seed, and I guess being closer to the in the hunt graphic than, will they finish as the 1 seed. So I just kind of wanted to take a step back and look at it because this season feels so much different than last season, right? And I think part of last year was Josh really emerging and how much fun that's been for how bad of quarterback play we've had over the years. And I think he's largely still having a good season. The numbers suggest that it's pretty similar to last year. But it feels so much different this year. And I'm largely going to focus on the offense here because I think most of us are, overall pleasantly surprised with the defense. I don't think we, expected the defense to improve as much as it did from last year. Which brings me to the offense, and it's kind of been... Last year felt like we could score at will, and I think of that Rams game where we had to come back and, we blew an early lead and we were still able to come back and secure that win. And I think of the sequence where, Josh says, well, how many times do we have to score? And it didn't matter. We were in the red zone and we scored 3 or 4 consecutive times. There was penalties, there was all kinds of stuff that happened, and we were still able to get it done. And then I look at this year and just how much we've struggled in the red zone all year. And, the personnel hasn't really changed much. So, what happened there? What's different this year that we're struggling so much in the red zone? And I think part of it for me is the play calling. It just seems like this year we're kind of vanilla and boring, and I don't know if that's somewhat limited by players being able to execute, but it's, again, also largely the same players as last year. But I just think of plays like the McKenzie jet sweep. Even when we weren't using that a ton last year, we would move him into motion and kind of threaten it to keep defenses on the toes. We've seen almost none of that this year. I think of all the, gadget type plays that we would use last year, and some of them I hated at the time when we did it. Like, our offense is so good. Why do you have to send Josh out on a route as a receiver and let him get upended at the goal line? But it just seemed to me like the play calling last year was very much like it was gutsy and it was leaving everything on the field, and there was no, we'll come back and get it next possession. It was pedal to the metal and just gutsy, and I just don't really see that this year. It's just very bland. It seems like we keep trying to force a run game that we very clearly don't have. And when you look at the breakdown of the run to pass percentage, it comes out right now pretty much the same as last year, but I think last year's numbers were a little bit skewed by, trying to run the ball and run clock to end games. This year, I just feel like we're trying to force a run game into existence that we just don't have. I don't think our backs are good enough to do it on their own, and our offensive line isn't doing much to help them. So for me, I think it's just kind of lean into our strength and just keep throwing the ball. If you can't run effectively, then don't. Part of my problem with the play calling goes to this New England game. How many times do we see Josh Allen doing a quarterback sweep or a quarterback draw, and it's like 2nd and 5 in the first quarter with nothing on the line? And he's our most effective running back on this team, and it sucks to say that, but it's the case. So then we go into this New England game where weather is a huge factor. We can't throw the way we want to, and he comes out of the game, I believe, with 6 total carries. To me, that just seems like, with the stakes of the game and the weather conditions and everything going into it, wouldn't that be the game to have 15 designed runs for Josh Allen and let him go do his thing? It just seems like, we're picking now to be scared of him getting hit when that would have been our best weapon in that game plan. Again, with the self-inflicted wounds, there's so many inopportune penalties, so many unforced errors. It just looks like the team is, I don't want to say they came into the season cocky or careless. It just seems like there's a lot of fundamental errors being made. And we saw a bit of that last year, but we had like this moxie to be able to overcome it. And I guess that's kind of where I stand overall with the team right now. For the record, I still think the team makes the playoffs. I don't think we at this point win the division. I think that loss to New England was pretty brutal for that. But, when it comes down to it, this playoff race, if we're looking for a wild card game, it's going to be really tight at the end. And a game like the Buccaneers coming up, I think we still have a chance if we lose that game, but we start running out of time real quick. And with how convoluted the AFC is this year, you can't really give up too much more ground before you're in that tiebreaker territory. And pretty much all of our losses this year coming against the AFC isn't going to do anything to help us in tie-breaking situations. So I think this is the time of the year to really buckle down, and over the last 5-6 weeks of the season, you really have to dig deep inside and find out what this team is made of. And if they get to the playoffs, I think they can go toe to toe with any team that they see. But you got to get there first at this point.